Good morning, afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is combo number 2 with another Throwback Thursday. I'm Tom Flores, and I'm here once again with.
Just because I'm voting for Bernie Sanders does not make Travis Baker a communist.
Yes, and that should let you all know we are here talking about
Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, directed by Stanley Kubrick, who co-wrote it with Peter George, Terry Southern, and it's based on Peter George's novel, starring...
It's starring George C. Scott.
Mm-hmm.
There's Peter Sellers in 3 roles. And then you have a young James Earl Jones.
Yep.
You have Slim Pickens.
Mm-hmm.
And basically a bunch of other actors, in supporting roles. And it's interesting how there's actually a pretty big cast, but very few people talk.
If you think not that many people talk.
Yeah, and it's that's why I think is interesting about that from the get-go, and just rewatch this movie so many times. If you first watch it, there's a lot of dudes in that movie. But,
yeah.
I mean, yes, it's a male-dominated role. There's only one woman, and I think what's her name? It's something Reed.
The
girl.
The girl that was with
with Buck.
General Turgidson. Yeah.
And she was actually on the Playboy magazine too, which was funny.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor Reed? I think it's Taylor Reed. I think so.
You want to? Okay.
But anyway, yeah, that's what I think is funny. It is a male-dominated movie. But what's funny about it, because of how many men are in this movie, there's only like a handful that talk in the war room scenes.
Yeah.
From the get-go, which is, I think, is kind of...
It's like the president, General Turgidson...
And then Dr. Strangelove and the Russian ambassador.
And as well as like his chief of staff.
Tracy Reed. I was off a little bit.
Tracy Reed? Okay.
Reed, yeah. That I'm just remembering.
He just checked his IMDb.
It's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's...
Perfect.
And what's funny about this, it is a comedy, and it's having fun with the Cold War.
Yeah.
This movie came out in 64. And so this is definitely at that time very current,
It was just after the Cuban Missile Crisis, so we were just...
It makes sense.
We were like recovering from that whole brinksmanship on literally the brink.
And this is why it works so well back then, because of it. It was current. It made sense. And actually, I think it's still today, because it just shows how, because of what the movie does is it takes a comedic side to it. It's ridiculous, kind of, if you think about it.
It's a movie that we watch nowadays to just show how stupid the Cold War was.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. But yeah.
That's an interesting way to look at it, yeah. But to show the comedy side of it, because it is. And the way this is done, and it's funny, it puts on like literally a disclaimer at the very beginning of the movie. It's like, this could never happen. This is just to have fun in it. Obviously, there's policies to keep this from happening. But in the movie, what happens is that one of the generals, and it's funny, his name's Jack D. Ripper.
Jack the Ripper?
And I was talking with Travis about that. You only hear them say General Ripper most of the movie until...
General Jack Ripper.
No, they don't say Jack Ripper until Buck Turgidson talks to the president about it and says his full name. And when you hear the name Jack Ripper... You do see it on his name, on his little name plaque on his desk, Jack the Ripper. But when it's actually said, it sounds funny because of Jack Ripper. And Jack Ripper was the famous London serial killer, huh?
Yeah.
That's what's funny about that character. But to show that the General Ripper is insane. He kind of basically just lost his mind. And he obviously does hate the communists back then. The Russians, the communists. He does hate them. And it's all he thinks about is just winning the war. Because he's a general, and he's in a position of power where he can actually execute a plan to annihilate them, not kill them, annihilate them.
You just burped.
I know I did. I just had a tortilla with cheese. And what's interesting about it, I like how the plan, a wing attack planet R.
Yeah.
Is one way of doing it. It's like the loophole in the system, if you think about it, because the way it's set up is that. It's like
he sends a bunch of planes to go.
They're already there because of it was an exercise.
Yeah, it's like they're already hanging around
Operation Kick Drop.
Yeah, that's what it was called, and they're already hanging around Russia, and they like occasionally do drill exercises to like go in, but at a certain point, what they call like the fail-safe point, which I think is like a distance. Then they're ordered to like turn back around, except for when Wing Attack Plan R. Mm-hmm. Why do they call it Plan R? Do you have an idea?
Because they said it's a resistance fight. So it's when the president and all the chain of command have been wiped out, a general is able to... Sorry, it's a retaliation attack, not a resistance.
Retaliation, yeah.
And then is able to retaliate with still the force of America's armed forces, and he can then... That general can act like the commander-in-chief when the commander-in-chief and everyone down the chain of command is killed or killed off.
Yeah.
That's the point of it. It's basically like the last stand move in a way for the real thing. But since it's there, the general's able to do that.
Yep.
And then once it's set in place, the base he's at is put on lockdown on red, and so basically anyone trying to get in is going to be shot at and meet heavy resistance.
Yeah.
And then his squad of bombers that he's in charge of, when they get it, they basically go radio silent. They put their radios to CRN 114, which basically is not able to receive, and it's designed that way so that they don't get false orders or the enemy messes with them.
Yeah, unless it's like a very special, it's like a three-letter code that only General Ripper knows.
Yeah, and that's the only way to let them know to turn it back on.
Yeah.
And then to take orders, and that's what Plan R has inquired, and then they just hit their targets, and that's it. They're basically, now they don't need a second order basically a second okay order. They just go until they commit. Like, they go to commit.
So basically, the United States, thanks to a very mad general, is about to go into nuclear war with Russia.
Yeah, on his own, without even delegating
without even like consulting with the president.
No.
And I love that first scene with. Well, actually, no. Let's talk about Peter Sellers, because this is where we get the first Peter Sellers role, where he's just British Peter Sellers as Captain. The Royal Air Force, Captain Lionel Mandrake.
I like how it's Mandrake. Like the names are funny in this one.
Yeah. And
he's talking to the Jack Ripper, and he's played by Sterling Hayden.
Okay, that's his name.
Yeah, and what happens is it's like kind of like, at first there's the way the movie opens up. There's a disclaimer about saying this can never happen, and then they show the opening credits. And what I talked to Travis about it, what I noticed with the opening credits is you see the two bombers. It's two bombers. But the bomber, the one that's the top that looks like a bomber, it's not. It's just a refueling plane.
Yeah, it sticks the tube down to the top of the other plane below.
To feel it. So they can be up 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Ready to go.
And you said it was something...
It wasn't like
romantic, not necessarily there was something erotic about that image.
About the pole entering, but you
could interpret it that way.
But it was more central because the music that was used to play felt like that couple, like everyone gets a girl, partner, and they ballroom dance feel of elegance and grace and romanticism with a little sensuality. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got it, because they are connected, flying in together. That's what I thought was interesting. Yeah. I'm like, it's kind of, and to me, it adds more to the comedy, I think, overall, because this isn't a serious movie. This isn't like Failsafe. This is the funnier side of it.
Failsafe is like the serious version of this. And by the way, Failsafe is also a really good movie if you want to learn about what if the Cold War, if you want to see another what if the Cold War went wrong movie, but a serious version, watch Failsafe. It's really good.
And this is why that's why I was saying that's the comedy, because it's just...
In fact, I think Failsafe bombed at the box office because they saw this movie, and so Failsafe came out at a bad time because everyone was like, oh, I guess this Cold War thing's kind of stupid, huh?
Oh.
And then Failsafe came out and no one was in the mood anymore.
That's interesting.
Something I want to bring up throughout this podcast in various increments is comparing it to because this is a comedy movie. It's dark and it's serious. It's a serious comedy, but it is a comedy. This is a funny. Yeah, especially as it progresses. This is a funny movie. But I want to compare it to how comedies would be done today.
Okay.
What if this is made today?
How would it be
this
different?
Story, this kind of story, but in a spoof sort of way. But how would it have been done today by an average comedy director today, as opposed to a good filmmaker like Stanley Kubrick?
He doesn't really do comedies.
He doesn't do this is a funny movie, but it's also a really good film, and there's attention to filmmaking.
It's a farce overall too.
Yeah.
It's a farce. Yeah. Okay. And
I'm just thinking, back to that opening scene, with that romantic music. Nowadays, I could see I don't know, say freaking Will Ferrell was in it, or another comedy actor, or worse comes to worse, Happy Madison starring Adam Sandler produced this, it would have like really over the top hammed orchestral military music.
It would play the stereotype.
Dun, 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 dun,
it would play the stereotype.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And people would, and the performances would be. I mean, you could argue that George C. Scott's character goes a little over the top in a few instances, but
that worked because he was back then
mm-hmm.
he was more of the Yankee in the group, like the one that was gung ho.
Yeah.
First of all, he's
and there was other characters to contrast it with.
So that was I think the point of it.
Mm-hmm. Like especially that two-way conversation.
Because at first it does start off him calm and just his personality. Yeah, it literally. But as it goes on, because as it goes on, even Peter Sellers' other character, the president, it starts off serious and straight, and then he becomes funnier and a little more over the top.
Peter Sellers, man. I mean, he starts off as the Royal Air Force's weaselly British Air Force guy,
Boy Scout.
Yeah, kind of a Boy Scout, and then you see him as the president. First of all, he's a good American accent. Like, you kind of forget it's Peter Sellers for a second.
Doesn't even really look like him.
No,
almost.
I don't know if he shaved his head or if that's just
probably
prosthetic. But it doesn't look like him at all.
No.
And the glasses help disguise that further.
Yeah.
So, good job to Peter Sellers for showing off his acting range in the same movie. But yeah, that conversation that George C. Scott has with him.
It's serious.
Yeah, it's and another thing that I've noticed, and Kubrick seems to do this in his movies, where it's like there's a lot of shot reverse shot in this movie. It's like a shot of George C. Scott, Buck. Well, okay, let's just call him Buck or Turgidson. The shot of Buck, and then it goes to a shot of the president. But the exchange of dialogue. Usually in comedies, the dialogue you want it kind of like fast. Banter, yes.
Bantery,
that's
on
sort
top of each other.
That's sort of the mentality of making comedies today.
But now it's paced.
But here it's very paced. It's like, Buck says something, pause.
Then switch.
Switch shot to the president. He says something, pause.
Then says
switch
something,
back.
Pauses, yeah.
And it reminds me, and I was like, okay, this is something like Stanley Kubrick would do. Like in The Shining, there's that scene where the boy is talking to the other, where Danny's talking to the other psychic, the chef, in the beginning of the movie, and it's a lot like that. It's just shot, this person says something, reverse shot, or person says something, pause, reverse shot, then someone says something, pause, reverse shot, someone says something, very paced.
Yeah.
It didn't account for this so-called attention, a lack of attention problem that supposedly our generation and the generation next to us has. Mm-hmm. And people say, "Oh no, you gotta get it."
Snappy.
Snappy.
And
we gotta make Sesame Street 30 minutes long now because kids can't pay attention for an hour. Which I call.
I pay attention for an hour. That was great.
I pay attention for an hour. I call that a little BS.
And going back to as we're getting back, so it starts off after the disclaimer, after the opening credits, it opens up to the Air Force Base where Ripper's in charge of.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is you see that's where we're introduced to the first of three characters that Peter Sellers plays, and that's Mandrake, and he's basically just checking on everything, almost like routine stuff. And then he gets a call from Ripper, and they're talking, and it gets where Ripper is being very serious, and he says like, I wouldn't call you if it was important. He's like, okay, what's up? And it's like, we're putting the base on condition right. He's like, all right, cool, yeah, good exercise for the men. That's awesome, jolly good. He's like, no, this is serious. He's like, oh dear, like
this is the real deal, man.
And he's like, oh, okay, that's crazy. He's like, yeah, I want to. And then he gives out his orders. I want a lockdown. I want the phone lines dead, and I want all personal radios confiscated. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, after that, report to me. And it's like it ends with that. And what's great is that Ripper the whole time, throughout the whole movie, every scene with Ripper, he's smoking that cigar the whole time. I think that's great.
So badass with that cigar.
Oh yeah. And then you hear the sirens go off, and he starts closing the lights, and then the shot goes back to because it takes place over 3 scenes.
Yeah.
It goes to our second scene group, our second location, basically our second group of characters in this movie, and that's on the B-52 bomber.
Yeah.
The pilot and the crew there. and it's once again there's that it's a comedy, but there's serious moments where these guys the whole time in these scenes, I like how the dialogue's funny. What they say is funny.
Yeah,
they're playing it straight. But when they're doing their task and like minutes, like just random, like their standard tasks and routines, they're very serious and very precise, which I like that. Like when the new orders come in, taking it, even when they're eating, that's where we see the Playboy.
There's
magazine.
Attention to detail, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
and which is
great.
Yeah, Kubrick's very good with attention to detail.
And what's funny is that the captain, the mate. Well, this character's name is Major King Kong. They just call him Kong, played by Slim Pickens. We see him. He's looking at a Playboy magazine, and that's where Tracy Reed is in, and she's also in it, which is funny. Which is funny. I like that little detail. And then they get the orders in. I think it was FGD 135. I think that was it.
That sounds about right.
FHG.
No. I think it's FGH.
It was three letters. So it was FHD, FGD 135 was the Wing Attack Plan R orders code.
Okay.
And I like when they get that, the guy who interprets the code, they're basically like their radio man, I would say.
Yeah.
He looks at it and he's like, starts to like, what the heck's going on here? And he's like, hey, Major Kong, you won't believe this, but I got this. He's like, wait, what? And then here's more.
It's like, check it again.
And he's like,
it's Wing Attack Plan
R.
And
he's like, haven't I told you guys to stop horsing around? And then more guys are starting to surround the guy on the radio. And he's like laughing a little bit. He's like, I'm serious. I don't know what to do here. This is it. He's like, what? And the way the shots are done back and forth.
You don't know the distance between the pilot, which is played by Slim Pickens, and the people
on the radio now, because the group's grown.
Yeah.
And it's like, what, 5 feet? And I think that's funny because, yes, the space in the plane is small.
Yeah.
It's a big plane, but it's only big because of the payload, which is two megaton bombs.
And then he's like, all right, I'm coming back there.
And then you see the shot, he just walks over.
And it's like, oh, you'd think he'd probably hear them talking, but they're speaking on radio.
Yeah, and it's funny, like through the headsets, and he just walks around and walks over 2 steps, and he's there. And I think that was one funny moment to me, because it's like, they're so far away, maybe the radio guys are below, and he's up there, and he has to climb down. No,
yeah.
And it was just little subtleties of the comedy, from the extremes of this funny comedy. There's extremes and subtleties. And then he's like, all right, I guess because he is a soldier, he just goes straight to what he knows what to do. He goes to his safe, and he takes off his helmet, and he puts on a cowboy hat, which is hilarious. And that's where then James Earl Jones' character comes in, and he's all like, and he pops up from the little hatch. He's like, hey, I'm sure this is not just like a training thing, just disloyalty. And he's like, no one's given him the go code yet. And like, all right.
Give him the go code yet.
And then right there, though, right when he puts the hat on, is where that ants go.
You're like,
and that's what's even funnier, because throughout all their scenes after that to the end of the movie, that's the only thing that plays until it builds to its climax. And he told me it has different names for that song, right? Like different titles.
Well, of course, when we were little kids, we heard it as the ants go marching. One by one, hurrah!
And like little kids,
hurrah.
And then in the movie Ants, that was played when they were all singing it as they're marching to war.
Oh, the DreamWorks animated movie, yes. But of course, I remember when I first saw this movie with my dad, I was like, oh, the ants go marching. And Dad's like, what are you talking about? It's Johnny Goes Marching Home. What?
Yeah, so it's like
it's like an ABC Twinkle Twinkle Little Star kind of song
for our generation.
Yeah,
that's what we know, and that's what was fun. That's what's funny, because now when I rewatch it, I see that and I hear that, and all I think about is ants, because how such
yeah. Well, I didn't learn it from ants. I learned it from Barney and Friends.
That's awesome. Then it cuts to where we're introduced to Buck.
Yeah, Buck. General Turgensen. And so we're going to talk about that scene where I was just talking about with the pacing of the dialogue. And
well, actually, first it's when we see that actress.
Okay, the hotel room. Yeah, it's the actress who's in the Playboy magazine.
She's just sunbathing.
She's just sunbathing in the hotel.
In heels.
In heels, and she gets a call. I was like, well, General Turgensen is away at the moment. May I take a message?
But
no, it's like urgent. What do I want? You hear him in the bathroom.
They're shouting back to each other, and when she realizes who is on the other line, she says Freddie in like a flirtatious "I know you" way.
I'm Freddie.
And that's what's funny. And then that little subtlety of comedy. And then when he comes over, he's like basically shirt open in his boxers, and he's like, what's going on?
He's like on some vacation.
Yeah, it's like he's on vacation, and then he's like, when the phone call ends, he just is like, well, I'm just gonna go down to the war room for a bit. It's like, yeah, that's what you do.
I'm just gonna go.
You go to the war room.
I'm sure it's no biggie,
And
Wing Attack Plan R, I mean,
yeah,
piece of cake, right?
And then they cut back to the plane, and they basically just calls off what the orders are, like in their file they have, like what to do, and that's where we know when they changed it to CRN 114, basically it's radio silent. They can't get anything.
Yeah, now that we're in the war room scene now.
No,
right?
Then they go to the war room scene,
oh, okay.
And that's where the details are saying, and then that's where we get the pacing you're talking about.
Yes, and he's like, yeah, the president is very serious. He's like, I was under the impression I'm the only one allowed to give that kind of order, General. And the General, he's kind of in a Weasley position right now, but still trying to like hold his Yankee masculinity.
But to him, this is like an everyday thing. He acts like it's just simple things.
Yes. Well, then they'll proceed to their targets and detonate the bombs. Well, we should. We're just like, well, we should contact. Well, how come we haven't contacted the planes to come back? Well, that's not going to be possible, sir.
As you recall,
As you recall.
And then when he tries like, how is this impossible? Like for someone to give this order. Well, remember when that senator was going all like crazy about our accountability or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, that's why we did it. And he's like, wait, what? And then it like goes into more funniness. And then when the president says the general's mad, he's like, well,
I wouldn't go so far to say that.
Until the facts are brought in.
Till the facts, yeah.
And I think that's where the snowball of hilarity starts, because it's the seriousness with the funniness, and the funniness starts to overpower the seriousness.
It's like the pacing says suspense, but the dialogue says something else, and it's like the clash makes it even more funny.
And it's played straight face. It's
yeah.
Even though like some of the characters are being serious, with the characters who are being comedical, yes, they're comedical, and most of what they're saying.
I think it's just comedic. I don't think comedical is
more. Sorry, comedic. It's comedic in their lines and delivery, their lines and their movements, but they're still actually being. It's like they're seriously doing that.
Yeah,
like, it's all still serious with the funniness building.
Very rarely do you see comedies, like comedy movies, that like play their stuff straight. I mean, so sometimes they go over the top, or sometimes the premise is over the top. Like, it's just an excuse to see our actors do wacky things, because... And, but this is a comedy, but, yeah, it plays it straight, and it takes itself real seriously, probably because it actually has someone who wants to make genuinely good movies behind it, or wanted, I should say, because R.I.P. Stanley Kubrick, but someone who wanted to genuinely make really good films and wanted to make good filmmaking, not someone who wants to get a studio paycheck just by having, I mean, no offense, I know you want to see this movie, but that's what Dirty Grandpa kind of looks like to me.
Well, I think that was going to be good, but going back to this, that's, I think, and also too, because it was so relevant. That's what helps when you have a topic that's actually current and relevant for its time, and that works, and because that was such a serious thing.
Yeah.
To have fun with it, no one thinks of that, and when you see it, it is ridiculous, and you can have fun with it in such a serious manner, and then because when the dialogue begins, he's like. The president even says, like, I thought there was, like, a test to make sure everyone was mentally capable. And then he's like, well, I mean, one little hiccup. We shouldn't just condemn the whole thing. It's just one little slip-up. It's nothing big. And then it gets more and more. And what's funny is he's chewing gum the entire time.
He's chronically chewing that gum. Like
it's an addiction. Like, he's combating his cigarette addiction.
Yeah, I think I always knew that, but I don't think... I was paying attention. I don't think they ever said that in the film.
No, but it's probably a little detail.
But it makes sense because you see other people smoking cigars and stuff like that.
Cigarettes,
pipes,
the whole room, yeah.
And it's just like filled with a haze. That entire war room, and it looks beautiful, but the war room is just filled with like this haze of smoke.
A nice, not too thick, just right.
So you can only assume, like, why isn't he smoking? He seems like the kind of person. It's like, okay, that's probably why he's chewing.
And that was a lot of gum he had with him on hand.
Yeah,
for
a lot of gum.
And that was funny. He was just popping in gum every time. And then what made it really funny was when they were saying, can we get in contact with him? He's like, we can't. The base is on code red. He's like, all right, well, we got to get to him. We need to send troops in there. And he's like, well, when code red is that all the troops there basically make sure it turned into an impregnable fortress. Anyone who's going there is going to suffer heavy casualties. And then one guy's, he's like, my boys can brush from the side, and he gets a little frustrated. Then he's like, I got 1 to 2 points to make, and he says the first one is that the probability for turning back the bombers is getting low, diminishing quickly.
Mm-hmm.
2, I forgot what 2 and 3 was, but it was funny is that he kept listing off, but then he went to 3, 4, 5, and then when he gets to 5, it's like 5, and he starts wrinkling his eyebrows and getting serious.
He does an eyebrow thing.
And he says, "Let's just do it, because then we can get them with their pants down
just
and
blow them all to hell, and we'll win the war before it starts."
Because 6, they did tests, is that they will take out 90% of their nuclear capabilities and suffer only to 10 to 20 million people casualties instead of 120 million with a full scale.
Mm-hmm.
To him, strategically, it makes sense, because everything else from his points 1 to 4 about we can't turn them down. Once they hit radar, 2 was the once they hit radar, the Russians are gonna be mad.
Mm-hmm.
3, it was something about the base, and he was listing off like there's all these points we can't do. But then at 5, we just commit, and that's what Ripper meant. Is that in the war?
Yeah.
And once in the war room they're talking, once they realize that there's nothing to do, they have nothing to do but commitment, total commitment.
Yeah.
And that's what he was hoping for, and that's where Turgid's character helps him out in a way. I mean, they're not helping each other, but that's what Ripper was relying on.
Mm-hmm.
Someone to notice total commitment. And 6 was where they do this, the numbers, and then the president
ain't having that.
He doesn't want to do mass murder, not war. He wants to, to him, he says that's mass murder, not war. And he's like, look, the numbers, these are the numbers, these are the facts. Sure, it'll be a little bad. There'll be mourning, but
nothing more than 10 to 20 million casualties. Tops.
With the numbers. He's like fiddling with other stuff.
Give or take whatever he said.
Yeah,
General, I will not go down in history as one of the greatest mass murderers since Adolf Hitler.
Mr. President, I think you need to be more concerned with the American people than you look in history books. And I think the war room scenes were the funniest.
The war room scenes, that's really why you watch the movie.
Because when they try to get a hold of Ripper through the war room scene, the girl, they never say his name. They say Miss Scott. I think it was Miss Scott.
Miss Scott? Okay.
Or one was because in the Playboy shoot there was a banner put over her butt that said Foreign Affairs, so they called her Miss Foreign Affairs.
Oh, okay.
Which was that's a funny play on words.
It's like a joke.
But
inside joke.
She calls him in the war room. She's able to get a number into the war room and call him. And he's like, whoa, I thought you never said to call me here. And he's like, look, I take you seriously as a woman. I want to make you Miss Buck Turkison one day. All right, go to sleep. Bucky will be home soon. And Shug, don't forget to say your prayers. During the war room, and he's like, and then he makes sure no one saw him because he's like, sure, like all acting guilty.
Yeah.
And then what was funny in another war room scene was funny is that they bring the Russian ambassador in.
Yeah.
And from that point on, the only thing Buck is concerned about is the big board, because he keeps saying the big board after that. He's like, wait, the Russian ambassador's in? He's like, that's a total breach of security. Starts grabbing his binders and holding them like a school.
He could see the big board.
What about the big board?
That's precisely the idea, General. That's precisely the idea.
That's a great line. But and then
just shuts him down.
When the Russian ambassador comes in, he's still holding the binders like a schoolgirl holding him, and he's like, he's gonna see everything. He's like holding him, but there's nothing to hide really. That's what's funny. This is it's all there in front of him, and he thinks holding 2 binders is gonna protect it all, which is great. And then that's where the comedy is in, because the Russian ambassador, which I like, because you see at the end how smart his character is that he comes in with 2 small little cameras.
But the one's like an obvious camera, which General
cigarette box,
catches easily. And at the very end of the movie, you see him take out a pocket watch, and
he bends down to tie his shoe, but he's not.
And he's just taking pictures of the war.
And that's what I think is brilliant, because he knew going in, like how Ripper knew who would be in the war room. He went going in, knew there'd be one Yankee who would be just out to get him, who would hate him. And so he played on the fact with having 2 cameras, one to get away with, one to get rid of. But then since that's rid of, no one's going to think of anything, and then he has 2.
Yeah.
Which I liked. I thought that was really a smart move on the character's choice. And then when they get a hold of the Russian prime minister.
Premier Kissoff.
His name's Kissoff, which is funny. And that's something when we're hitting on names. With one with
They have a lot of fun with names in this movie.
What me and Travis were saying, we were talking about the George C. Scott's character, Buck Turgidson. Travis, you said...
I thought it was like... Is they saying that because it sounds like turd?
Mm-hmm. And then I thought that, or it could be like a deterrent.
Deterrent.
So it's like that. It's a fun play on words, I think, because another fun play on words is one of the targets for the bombers for the sites in Russia is called Laputa, and in Spanish, Laputa means prostitute.
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. Like, there's a lot of play on words like kiss off. There's another character that's called Bat Guano. Legit, just bat guano.
Have you looked that up? What is that?
No, it just said, bat guano's bat shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, bat shit. But that's what's funny, because like there's a play on, there's a play
really
on
your
words,
name.
and that's what's really funny with that. And so that with Turgidson, it's either turd, because that's what probably the president sees him as.
Yeah.
Or a deterrent. Like, that's the nuclear deterrent, like, but in like an irony way, because he wants war, not to deter it. He wants it.
Yeah.
He's like Ripper, but not to an extreme. He wants to beat the Russians, but he is in the more logical way instead of the craziness.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, and the kiss off. And let's talk about the conversation with.
It's on the phone, and you don't even need to hear or see.
You don't hear anything he says. The Russian president. You just hear the Peter Sellers president, the American president, and he starts out very stern and all of that, but then. Because it's referenced before, because it's the Russian ambassador who gets them on the phone, and he's like, be careful, Mr. President, he's quite drunk.
Because he says, like, he might be a man of the people, but he's still a man. So he's not at the office, he's somewhere else.
And it's like, all right, I can hear you, I can reach you, I hear you just fine. And you're fine, I'm fine, everybody's fine.
It's
like, oh no.
It's good to be fine, yes.
No.
Well, Dimitri, remember we talked about the bombs?
Bombs,
Dimitri. We were talking about the bombs.
We've always talked... No, he introduced it. We've always talked about something going wrong with the bomb. And he talks to him like he's a child.
Yeah.
Like a dad, like your dad sitting next to you. He's like, now we've always talked about this, son.
And then it goes
the
to like,
hydrogen bomb.
Yeah, like the hydrogen bomb, Dimitri, the hydrogen. And, one of our generals went a little funny, like in the head, and he did a silly thing. And he sent all the planes to attack, basically, to attack. And he's like, I understand, Dimitri. Calm down, Dimitri. And look, I know you're upset. I know I'm upset. Imagine how I feel, Dimitri. And I feel bad. I feel sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry too, Dimitri. I know you're sorry. And I'm sorry as well. Okay, I know you're more sorry.
Okay, you're more sorry than me, but I'm just as sorry.
I have the right. I can be just as sorry as you.
Oh, it's such a funny. I love that because.
And then everyone in the war room has their phone. Literally, everyone is in the room.
Nobody's laughing. Everyone's listening. And again, playing it straight.
Everyone's listening to the phone conversation. Yeah. But George C. Scott is the only one really reacting to it. He's like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah, he has this face. He's like, "Oh, what?"
And then it goes on, and he's like, "Well, we'll just have, if we can't recall, we'll just have to help you destroy them." I know there are boys, Dimitri. I know there are boys. And then he hands it back off to the ambassador, and that's where I think overall as a storyline, I feel like the Doomsday thing is made up, because I feel like that's where the Russian ambassador starts to overact it all, like act it out, play it up. I feel like that's like their joke, like not their joke. Sorry, they're like, when the president and the ambassador talk, like he said, if this ever happens, just say this is it and sell it. Like, I don't think the Russians actually have a doomsday device.
Well, then how do you explain the ending? How do you explain all the scenes with the Strangelove character?
Okay. The end with the bombs going off, you mean? It's just then, if that's just normal, like they only dropped one bomb on one ICBM site.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
IBCM.
The bomb that's
is it IBCM or ICBM?
I think it's ICBM.
They only on one site. So
correct us in the comments if we're wrong.
So that's one site. There's multiple sites. So once they heard that, they just go ham. Mm-hmm. And there's just one plane did it, not like 5 planes doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is, because to sell it to scare them, because even if we, as we saw, we do bomb them, the Russians will just fire like crazy. The word gets around quick.
Yeah.
So but I think that's...
You think that's just nuclear war in general? That's not actually the doomsday machine?
No, I think that's actually like they just made it up, because Buck's even like, they talk about the doomsday cloud, and he's like, what? Because he sells it, because they're talking in Russian when he goes back to when the ambassador gets the phone, but basically gets the line back to the premier, and he's like, he's all happy, and then he goes like, no, not yet.
Wait.
And then when he's like, Advita's saying, and he calls the phone, he's like, those fools, those mad fools. And he's like, what? The doomsday machine that can kill all animal and human life.
Now, do you think we would know for sure if we actually spoke Russian and we understood what he was saying?
I don't know it, but I think the basis was when he got the phone back, he's like, hey, hi, President, I'm back. And it's like, wait, what? What? No. Oh my God, are you fucking serious? What? Bye. Like that.
I'm still trying to figure out your theory on how it's all just a hoax.
Oh, because the way it's like, those fools, those mad fools. Because like,
you think it's over the top.
I think
therefore...
he gave him a code. Like, obviously, they probably in that war room had people who knew Russian. If we're going into this, really into this, okay, that makes sense. In this movie, they have someone who knows Russian like that. Obviously, they like in the Cold War, it's just tactical.
Okay.
And the premier said code words that they wouldn't pick up, but would be like, here you go. This is your cue.
Wink, wink, nudge,
and
nudge.
So, because when he gets up and he describes the Doomsday Stream, he starts getting theatrical. And he walks away and he holds his hands up.
Yeah.
It's like it'll consume the world in a cloud of radioactive cloud that will surround the world for 93 years. And he kind of gets a little theatrical. Like, if you think about it, there's no reason for him to really get off the chair and he could just say it right there, like, in a defeated, like, because he's gonna die there. Like, this is it. He gets up off the chair, and walks and shakes and moves his hands and gestures like on the stage.
Okay.
That's why I personally think that the Russians having a doomsday machine in this movie was, they didn't have it. They just said it to scare the Americans.
So you think if they actually had it, if they actually had it and he acted that way, that would have been defeating the whole playing it straight thing? You saw that as like a contradiction of that, and therefore you're theorizing that it was a hoax.
Yeah, it was a hoax, and it was their way, because they said the doomsday machine is based off to scare people, and so just by saying it, you can scare them. Because later on, first Buck's like, bull crap, you don't have this, but then later on he says to one guy off the side, he's like, dang, I wish we had one of those. So I feel like he's hoaxing. Yes, he does say, our reporter with the New York Times suggests otherwise, that the Americans have it, and they wanted to close a doomsday gap. But Dr. Strangelove, he says they don't have
also
it.
played by Peter Sellers.
Yes, so this is where this is a captured Nazi scientist, basically.
Yeah, with a hand that he cannot control.
Yeah, and he has one hand with the black glove. Basically, that's his Nazi side. And it has all this, and then everything else is the new American Strangelove, but that's the hand that still has that
Trapped
Nazi
in a wheelchair.
Yeah, because he doesn't. He basically has like paralysis of some sort. Some sort. Like,
we thought.
He loses his legs. Yeah, we think that's later on. But when the ambassador says that our sources with the New York Times basically say that you do, the president looks to Strangelove, who's in charge of their bomb department, basically the bomb department, and he never says we have it. He just says the technology to do it is simple. It's a simple thing. Even the smallest nuclear power can make it. It just takes the will to do it. You don't need to be the strongest. You don't need to be England. You don't need to be Russia. You don't need to be America. You could be the smallest nuclear power in the world with just one nuclear bomb, and it's a simple device to make. You just have to have the will to do it. But he never says that, yes, we have it, sir.
I just thought that was like a hammed up way of getting around the techno babble of how did you build this machine?
Well, it's to show. Well, when he's saying all the technical and his little technical terminology in his rant of how to actually do it, you see how little off the rocker this character's a little crazy, a little off his rocker.
Yeah.
It's funny because when he goes to check, because his hand has a mind of its own, and this hand is basically his old Nazi self, because he fights. Because when he's smoking, he's trying to get with it's on his right hand's the hand that has lost control.
The one
black
with
glove.
the hand with the glove.
And his left hand goes to get a cigarette out of his mouth, but the right hand already has it. And he looks at it like, what the hell? And he fights it and puts it back on because he's trying to control his hand because it has a mind of its own. And later on, what's funny is that when he goes to see how long people would have to live underground until they could come out, basically fallout shelters, until they can go back to the surface, he goes for his half-life calculator for nuclear fallout.
It looked like a CD.
But no, it was like a little it was like the old calculators back then, but a circular one to calculate a half-life of how many
Oh, okay.
But what's funny is he goes to get it with his left hand in his suit jacket. But all of a sudden his right hand has it and he just pops it up right in front of him. He looks at it and is like, how the fuck? And he goes for his left hand. He's like, how the hell did he get out of there? He's like, how did you get that? And so he takes it out of his left hand and he's looking at his right hand. He's like, what the? Like, stay down there. Forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's funny. And that's what's funny. So that's what's funny about the character. He's already off his rocker because when he has a hand that has a mind of its own, and it's basically a Nazi hand, like the Heil Hitler hand, like he's still trying to salute Hitler.
A couple of times he
in his other time,
does it accidentally.
And his other hand's the normal, relaxed, but he's already a little off his rocker anyway when he talks in his German accent. And what's funny about that character is that Buck talks to basically, I'd say that's the president's main advisor.
I would say the chief of staff, probably.
Yeah, and he's saying to him, he's like, that's Strangelove. That's a weird Kraut name. Like, what kind of name is that? He's like, oh, he changed it, and when he says his German name, in German that means Strangelove, basically. So all he did was just basically, he didn't really change his name. And that's what's another part that's funny. And then what's nice about the movie goes back between the three main groups of characters: Plane, the Mandrake and Ripper at the base, and then back at the war room. And what's interesting about at the base when it's like they send in the airborne to go in there and take back the base and get Ripper on the phone. Mm-hmm. Those scenes of them storming the base and the shooting and everything looks like actual.
They look like documentary footage.
It's really good war because stuff's blowing up.
Yeah.
Men are dropping down like flies and people are dying and shells are flying everywhere, ammo's going everywhere.
It's like someone is there in the fight.
Like that's an actual combat.
Yeah. Which, Kubrick's more for controlled shots.
Not a shaky cam.
Smooth and, very methodical. Whereas, these shots kind of contradict that style of his. But, Stanley Kubrick, he does whatever the hell he wants to, so it's like he saw that as like, all right, I want to...
And it worked, because I thought I'm like, this is a great war shot. Damn, this is like, wow.
He knows how to make a war movie, I know that, because before then,
Path of
Glory.
And then after this is Full Metal Jacket,
2 decades later, he did Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
So,
but again, though, with the shots, quickly before we move on, these combat shots, this is the serious side. This is definitely serious because people are dying now, things are blowing up. But what's funny is in the background, there's banners, because all over the base they have banners that say peace is our profession. And so when guys are shooting each other up, troops are moving in with, machine guns, firing, explosion going off, it's right up against the backdrop of peace is our profession. Then one shot has a sign that says "Keep off the grass," and the troops are on the grass shooting the place up. So it's just the little subtle comedy bits.
A lot of things intentional by the production design department,
and it's hilarious. And then when we go back to Ripper in his office, because Mandrake figures out what's going on, and he's like, "All right, now it's time for me to take control." But the general's locked them both in. He threw away the key, and he's the only one who has the codes up in his head, and the codes has to be OPE. And basically, it comes from Peace on Earth, or it was like
Peace on Earth. Something else. There was something else. Peace on Earth, and then there was something else.
It was something of our essence.
Preserving our essence.
Purity of essence.
Purity of essence. Yes.
Peace on Earth, purity of essence, but it's basically OPE.
He this is after he
Because
in the end, he commits suicide because his troops give up. So he's like, all right, fuck it.
Because he knows he's screwed. Now he knows he's really screwed, and he doesn't want to get tortured for the information. And what's interesting because he puts purity of essence, because the general's whole thought process is to preserve and keep our bodily fluids purified. It's all about our fluids.
Let's talk about that quote. Good segue there, because I really wanted to go back to that.
Go.
Yeah, I like how when he first says it, and he first says it in this monologue that he gives to Mandrake, and then to preserve the purity of our bodily fluids, and that comes in the end of his monologue, and it's such a, I don't know if bait and switch is the right word, or twist, that's a better word. It's such a twist, because you're like, the fuck he just said? It like contradicts, because you think it's like, victory is imminent, victory is great. I mean,
the American way.
The American way. You think he's going to say something totally hammed up and patriotic, and then he says to keep up the purity of our bodily fluids. And you're like, the fuck did he just say?
And
you hear the letter he sends in the phone call that eventually reaches the war room scene, and they same thing is like to preserve our natural fluids. And you think this is just, it's like, oh my god, this guy's totally lost it. What is he saying? Does he even know how to speak English? Until during the firefight, when he's talking to poor old Mandrake, who's just sitting in the fetal position on the couch, because he just realized he's locked in a room with a madman. And he sounds so weaselly, but he has his arm around him like a creeper, and then he explains it and talks about
he begins to explain it, and and that monologue ends with another like what the heck that leads into it. But he basically why he's like that, because he starts saying like he only drinks rainwater, distilled water, and pure grain alcohol, and he ends that second monologue with, have you ever heard of fluoridation?
Yeah,
fluoridation.
It's the most monstrous communist plot that's ever happened in this country.
And then it's like a pause, and it's like, what? Because fluoridation, you were telling me about this, and I looked it up quickly. It's basically putting fluoride in our tap water to help combat like tartar and like
cavities. It's basically
to help our teeth.
To help our teeth, or so they say. I don't know if you read InfoWars, you might think differently.
That it's a communist plot to basically wipe us out, because then when the firefight begins, it's funny, when the firefight starts to hit his office, he goes to his golf clubs, his golf bag, and he pulls out a Browning 50 cal out of the golf bag and a belt of ammo, and he's like, come over here, feed me. He's like, and Mandrake's in the field, but she's like, what, Jack? He's like, for God's sake, for Queen, for Your Majesty, and like for the American people, like, come over here.
On behalf of the Queen of England and the Continental Congress.
Come over, feed this bell. He's like, damn it, Mandrake, the redcoats are coming.
I have a string in my leg, and it seems to have given out.
It's a jam leg, but and then as the firefight goes on, he's just unloading. He sits down, crisscross applesauce like a kid, and he goes back to fluoridation. He learned more about it, and he says they're going to put it in our salt, our sugar, this, that, ice cream, Mandrake,
children's ice cream,
and then it shows how just crazy it is, and then. The idea comes to him. Mandrake asks him, like, when did this come to you? And he says that the idea came to him while having sex.
And they act him in the physical act of love, Mandrake. and even that I couldn't understand, like, because he explains it, but I still didn't understand any of it. It just kind of flew over my head.
And it's like,
I guess he couldn't satisfy his woman well, and he thought it was because of the fluoridation.
He had fatigue,
yeah.
And he thought it was because of the fluoridation, and he says, like, women come, they sense my power, Mandrake. Women come to me. I go, like, what was it? I go to women, but I deny them my essence. And it was like, and he's
that's how you know for sure he's truly
lost it. And Mandrake's looking at him, he's like, oh shit. That's when his eyes are like, oh
me.
Yeah. And that's what's so funny about it. And when it goes back to the war room, and when they basically come,
there's no fighting in the war room.
Yeah, that's what that.
Gotta get that quote in there.
That was such a funny quote. When they come to it, they basically they're about to basically just, the only thing to do is either commit or help the Russians destroy every single one of our bombers.
Mm-hmm.
And so right when they're about to do that, that's when Mandrake was. That's what after
the firefight ends and General commits suicide, and he's captured by
Colonel Batguano.
Colonel Batshit, and he's captured, and he's like, and he's trying to talk down to this officer as if he's just obsolete. It's just like, I'm here to arrest you. where's Colonel or where's General Ripper? I'm assigned to get him on the phone with the president.
He's in the bathroom. Oh. Yeah, he's dead.
He just whistles, just like, ooh.
And obviously he shot his head off relatively.
Yeah, they don't show it.
No,
it's
but
like,
yeah.
you know what happened.
Yeah.
You hear the bang.
And he gets mad and he says, like, look, I don't know what's going on here, but basically he was insane. I know what the go codes, the recall codes are.
Because he sees like this weird makeshift Scrabble game.
Yeah,
it looks
that's
like.
What's interesting. It's Purity Vincent's Peace on Earth, and it's turned into a crossword puzzle game almost.
Yeah.
Scrabble crossword.
I lost it.
And then he says to him, like, look, I gotta get on the line right now. Goes to the phone. Blast. It's not working, probably from your troops and the stupid assault. And he goes for the other phone. It has no wire. And then he starts taking him. Yeah.
This guy has like what kind of gun does he have pointed at him?
I think it's basically like a semi-automatic rifle.
Okay.
It's not.
It's a gun pointed at him. But he just continues to talk down on him, like
back Guano, yeah.
To back Guano, like you got stupid fighting. I need to get to a phone. I need you to escort me to a phone. And then finally he reaches a pay phone, but he's low on change. Just asks him
because he can't make it a station to station call. He needs 20 more cents.
Yeah, and even this is like.
He's calling the phone on a president from a phone booth on a landline.
Yeah,
that's what's funny. And then Guano's whole thing is like this basically a mutiny was happening, led by you, and basically you're a prevert, leading in a bunch of other preverts and your perversions.
Preversions.
And then he tells him, and then Mandrake tells him to shoot the Coca-Cola machine. He's like, that's public. That's private property. Damn it, man! Just shoot the thing with the gun. Shoot. And he's like, all right.
Wonderful product placement. One of the best uses of product placement you'll ever see in film.
He's like, all right, I'll get you a change, but if you're not able to get the president on the line, you know what's going to happen? What? You're going to have to answer the Coca-Cola company. And he shoots it off.
He says it dead serious, too.
And he
totally respects that this is private property.
And he means it. You're gonna call the Coca-Cola company because you destroyed their machine. And when he shoots the machine, he gets the change, but then all of a sudden it comes out, hits him in the face. And then they're able to recall all the planes, right? And they're all cheering and everything.
Most of them.
Well, Strangelove is just sitting there like, all aloof in the background. The president's just breathing hard and just like...
Oh, I was talking about most of the planes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
they call back 34. There's 34 planes that get recalled, they say, right?
Yeah.
And when they hear the recall, all 34 came back. It was funny. Buck's like, all right, a moment of prayer. And he's like, dear God, we heard the flutterings of the angel of death on our shoulders. And then they hear, like,
the chief of staff is like, Mr. President, it appears one of the planes is not...
No, he says, the premier's on the phone. He's hopping mad.
He's hopping mad.
Yeah.
I love the way he says that,
and that's
too.
when we find out one plane that we show that got shot survived.
Yeah, the plane we've been focusing on with young James Earl Jones.
With Major Kong, led by Major Kong.
Who, fun fact, was supposed to also be played by Sellers, but Sellers got tired, so he actually faked a leg injury.
Really? That's funny. Actually, I heard that also, too, the people he was going down the line to ask, one of them was John Wayne. Before
Yeah, I remember something about that.
That would have changed the whole movie, I feel like.
It would have been so bizarre if John Wayne in that kind of role.
Yeah, because John Wayne's not over the top like Slim Pickens played. He's just reserved. He's a reserved cowboy, not like a yeehaw cowboy.
It'd be even weirder to just see him on that bomb. Like, can you imagine the end with John Wayne on the nuclear bomb?
Oh, he'd been like, there we go.
What? He probably wouldn't even be doing that.
He'd just tilt his cap.
He'd be singing like in his low voice. I don't know, the Star Spangled Banner. If you want to add,
yeah, it would have been like a rodeo. It wouldn't have been a rodeo because Slim Pickens says, "I've been to one World Fair, a picnic, and a rodeo, and this is the stupidest thing I ever heard." And that's what's funny about it. And then when we find out from the premiere over the phone, because now they're all over the phone again, and now this time 2 guys are sharing a phone.
Adorable.
It's hilarious. They're saying that 31 got recalled, 3 got destroyed. No, 30 got recalled, 4 were destroyed, but then they find out only 3 were destroyed. 1 was just hit.
And that happens to be our main plane that we've been focusing on.
And it's funny that is like, well, like we have all the recall, and then Buck's like, I smell a commie rat. Like, what did they say? They really didn't, but this confusion to excuse to clobber us, and it's all on us now. And he's like, Are you sure you have nothing? He's like looking at him, he's like...
He's just sounding more pitiful.
He's like, they're penetrating our Russian radar cover. And he's like, I'm sorry to meet you, but that's what they... You know how they're trained to fly under radar cover. That's just they do it on instinct. That's all we can do. And he's like... And then the phone... He's like, well, listen, Dimitri, God knows that we're in this together, you know? We're behind you all the way. And if I give you one... Dimitri, can I give you...
Stop sounding hysterical on the phone!
Dimitri, stop jumping up and down when you're talking to her. Dimitri, can I give you one piece of advice, Dimitri? You know the two targets, just send them all there and you have a chance. Just throw everything you got. And then when the phone ends...
He sounds so desperate.
And when the phone call ends, he's like, does he have a chance? He's like...
Does he have a chance?
He's like, no, he's like, well... He gets off topic. He's like, listen, we know...
That's when he gets over the top.
Yeah, he's like...
George C. Scott.
These Russians, you know, they don't know the machinery like we do. They're not, you know, smart enough. And the ambassador was like, no offense. We know how you Russians are great fighters. You know, you all those Nazis have to kill them off. And, you know, like, can you stick to the point? Can he shoot? Well, I mean, if the pilot's good, I'm talking like real straight. Oh, you can barrel that thing down. It's a sight to see, Mr. President. He can just barrel that thing down and everything. Like, well, does he got a chance? Does he got a chance? Hell yeah! Oh.
And then he puts his hand over his mouth, and he's like, oh.
And he's like, oh.
Just genius.
And he does, because the plane is literally right on...
And you know what? Actually, Cole, before we go there, you know what's funny about that conversation? It still goes by Kubrick's formula of... Person says something, pause, reverse shot to the next person. They say something, pause, next shot. Yeah. It's still done like that.
Because I only can recall 3 instances where it's still where another character's talking and you hear another character say something. Like only 3 times I only remember that where it's where it doesn't go from where you see every person talk. You just hear 3 times someone talk to someone that's filmed on someone else.
Yeah.
Like and you're right, that's the formula. And that's what works with that pacing of, and it's hilarious because it's not that, like you said, that quick banter of like boom, 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 boom on top of each other.
Yeah.
It's just, you sit back and listen to the craziness. And I like how, because the plane, the plane gets injured, we see, but it's only its engine. Because they're able to miss the missile hitting him, but the blast radius just gets the engine.
Yeah.
And then it destroys the CRN-114 and blows it up. Basically, it blows itself up. So that's why they didn't get the recall codes.
Yeah.
And then they're losing fuel. And the thing about with detail, especially with Kubrick, this attention to detail, the loss of fuel becomes a factor because what they first do is they recall the codes. Like, oh damn it, maybe that explosion just injured the plane and just. For that, all right, you know where they're going. They're 2 destinations. Just go there. Throw everything you got there. It's one plane. The whole Russian Air Force can destroy one plane. Then you find out because the loss of fuel is increased, they go to a completely different target. So the Russians miss them completely.
Oh,
yeah, and that's what's funny because every time they're trying to solve the problem,
I just realized that
every time in the war room they figure out way to solve the problem. Back to the plane scene, another problem arises, which makes it go there. It's like, are you serious? Like they can't get anything. And then, basically, that's where it leads to. There's a door malfunction. The bomb bay doors basically malfunction, and so that's where Major Kong goes down there and fixes himself. And what's funny on the missiles, you see on the very tip of the missile,
they each have names.
Hi there with an exclamation point and Dear John, and I love the one that says Hi there. Because that's the one that's
the one that goes down too.
Because Major Kong fixes the bomb doors, it opens, but the thing drops, and then he starts riding it like a bucking bronco down, like a bull down, and he's like, yeah.
Well, Kubrick was like, where's Major Kong?
What about Major Kong? And he's just like, yeah, woo!
And that's it. You don't even see the reaction to that. It's like, okay, that's enough with the plane scenes.
Yeah,
the story is over.
And then so the bomb goes off on an IBCM site.
That was ICB. Whatever.
It goes off on a missile site. So they basically they hit a target. And then it goes back to the war room, and then Dr. Strangelove begins to talk because now they know that's it. It's done. Now they got to think
Doomsday Machine.
Now they got to think about saving lives. And he says, like, what we can do is one of our deepest mine shafts, at least 1,000 feet deep, won't be penetrated by radiation. We'll be fine there. We just go down there and send as many people down there as we can. Obviously, ones with good genes, good genetics, and our men of higher power in our country, like the president, vice president, chiefs of staff, all that.
You know what I just realized?
What?
that's probably why his arms started going berserk. Like, he started doing Nazi salutes, choking him.
Why?
Because he was basically saying very Nazi things. Good genes, people of high power, people, breeding. It's like, I just realized he's starting to do the master race.
I like that. That's cool.
Rhetoric.
That's a good connection for that, for the character. And then they're talking. He's talking, and that's where we see another part of the hand fighting him, the hand having him on his own, because he goes to this, like, basically, it's not an actual calculator, because calculators weren't there back then, but it was a type of calculator to figure out if this many bombs goes off, what's the half-life? Like, how long is range? And he goes for it with his left hand, but all of a sudden his right hand just pops it out of nowhere. It comes out of nowhere, too. The hand just, like, has it, and he's like, what the? And he digs in his suit more. He's like, what the hell? How'd you get that? Give me that. And he figures it out. He's like, 93, for 100 years, we'd have to be down there. But if we did the right provisions, we got down there, we expanded the mines more, we can live there. And he says, to breed, we need 10 women to every one guy. And that's where all the guys are kind of like, it's not a bad idea. And then, but Buck's like, wouldn't that kind of kill the whole monogamous sexual relationship? Oh, yeah, but gotta do it for the greater good. And then he's like, and that's why all the women have to be basically picked by their high level of sexual attractiveness and sexual energy and all this, like just basically a high sexual content in any form that a woman possesses. And then the ambassador is like, you got a good idea there, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I like that idea. And what's funny is that the hand starts to begin to salute all of a sudden, and he puts it down. He
accidentally calls the president Führer.
Mein Führer, and he's like, sorry, Mr. President. And that's where he starts the fight, and then the hand's choking him, and he's fighting it.
And you pointed out to me that a couple of the people in the background, including the actor who plays the Russian president,
Ambassador.
Oh, sorry, yes.
They start breaking character, start laughing because it's so funny because his hand is just literally like all over the place, fighting him, choking him, saluting.
You have to rewind that to show me, and I saw his face is like smirking.
He starts beating up his hand, biting it, and everyone there is trying to be straight faced, just looking at him, and like they're like looking down. And
God knows how many takes they had to do, especially given that this is Kubrick.
And
Kubrick
they're long takes.
Loves doing multiple takes.
And long takes. These are long takes too.
Oh my God!
And what's funny is
on film too.
The ambassador you see twice, like obvious.
Yes.
But you quickly see a couple, like the guy. When you watch this movie either for the first time or you're rewatching it for the 100th time, the actor behind the ambassador with the glasses on his left side, on the ambassador's left side, quickly smiles. Because it's hilarious because he's beating the crap out of his hand
so hard
while his hand is trying to strangle him. He's biting it, it's saluting randomly and everything while being serious and talking to him and answering the president's questions about what we have to do in the bunker. Is it possible? Gosh, that'd be awful, the nostalgia, the wanting to live on.
I would hate to choose.
Yeah. And then he's like, can be easily done with the computer.
Yeah,
they're holding a glass of water and they're just talking, like sitting.
He's defeated.
And what's funny is that Buck comes with the idea of like, because the whole thing about having, first of all, what this whole movie's making fun of, one, the Cold War, a nuclear war, a nuclear bomb gap, because the ambassador says we didn't want a doomsday gap. And now it's talking about having a mine shaft gap. He's saying, like, what if we need to have nuclear arms in reserve, because what if when we come back up they come after our mine shafts? We cannot allow a mine shaft gap. And having more fun, like, how stupid are you with this stuff? You're thinking like dumb, like, who cares about the gap? You save your people. And what's funny is the movie ends on one of the most memorable lines, and it's improv, is that Strangelove's like, Mr. President, I have an idea. And he just gets up off the chair and walks, because the whole movie we're led to believe he's in a wheelchair, so he can't use his legs.
You can kind of see his legs moving, but you just assume like
he just can't.
Maybe it's like Mr. Bennett in high school.
I think it's like a tick he has with his upper thighs.
Okay.
So like he can move his knee, but below the knee, like from the thigh to the knee, he can like move and twitch. But he can't move anything knee down. And so what's funny is that he gets up off the wheelchair saying, Mr. President, I have an idea. Mein Führer! I can walk! And that's the movie ends.
And You see stock footage of nuclear explosions everywhere.
And then a song going off, we'll meet again.
Don't know where.
Don't know where. And that's what's funny about it. And that's how the movie ends. And it's actually, you think because it's so dialogue heavy and based, and you're just literally just sitting, listening to people talk, you think this is a long film. It goes by so quick.
I was surprised how long, because I've seen this movie before, but I was surprised how long it was. And as in how not long, because Kubrick
does long movies. He does a minimum 2 hour something movies.
Yeah, and I mean...
This is 90 minutes.
90 minutes.
Maybe not even, maybe like 87.
This is the guy who made the 3-hour epic that was 2001.
Oh yeah, and then Spartacus, another epic.
Yeah. It was like,
and this is like not even 90 minutes. I feel like this is 85, 87. Like it's quick. So really, even though it is dialogue heavy and based, you might be thinking this is going on forever. It goes by fast, and you're laughing so much too. Like most comedies, when you laugh so hard, they end so quick.
Mm-hmm.
This one ends even quicker because it's first of all so short. It's not even 90 minutes, and then it's so hilarious.
Yeah, it's
a great film for everyone to rewatch and be introduced to.
It's a really good comedy. It shows how a comedy can also be a very good film. It puts most other like comedy movies you watch to shame.
Oh, this is definitely one of the top 10 best comedies.
Yeah, if anything, and the reason because it's like
it was done differently.
It was done differently. It was done with attention to filmmaking. Rather than just, hey, let's play
and the jokes.
And the jokes. Well,
you know what I mean? Like they weren't like a comedy. It's focused on the jokes, the funny. Yeah. But this one was on the devil and the details, the whole scale of it, the set, and they weren't saying jokes. They were just talking.
Kubrick trusted that the script would be enough. That's what I think. Like the script would be enough to get the jokes would come across. You didn't have to play. I mean, George C. Scott did it, played it up, but that was like his character for the most part.
Because he's a Yankee.
Everyone else there was kind of a realism to it because everyone else is kind of playing it straight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and so for the most part he trusted on the script to get the funny across. It didn't have to do anything extra with it.
And that's And what's interesting too, when the behind the scenes about this, there was a lot of different endings to this movie. One original ending, which I would like to see, was one where when they pull back from Earth and it's being exploded, and aliens are watching over us. I mean, you can connect that to like, the beginnings of in his head of 2001, but also too that's just that'd be a fun idea because it'd be like, what would aliens think of looking at this? A higher life form
aliens
think of looking at this craziness.
Stupid.
And then another ending, it never showed. It only showed once in the theater in London, and I believe it was the year of Kubrick's death. I believe.
Yeah.
It ended the original one of the original endings. He thought it was too farcical, so he didn't keep it. But it ends where in the war room, the Russians and the Americans in the war room have a big pie fight because when there's a big banquet table in the war room of all this food,
full of food.
But you see halfway down it a lot of pies, custard pies and pies, a lot of fruit pies. And there's a bunch of pies, and you're like, that's a lot of freaking pies for a war room.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you hear like, oh, it was supposed to be a big pie fight where they're just throwing pies at each other, like, oh, that would have been fun. But obviously, he felt it was too farcical. And I think I like this ending more because it ends with, my Führer, I can walk.
It's a wonderful movie, and it's amazing how it's one of the few movies that was very topical for its time. Yet, ironically, it doesn't feel dated.
No, because our countries are still dealing with nuclear arms.
Yeah, that nuclear arms and
not a nuclear arms race, but just nuclear arms.
It's something that's discussed. It's a topic of discussion, but also just how well it's made and how well it was written. Like it didn't rely like a lot of times. What really dates a movie is if you throw too many cultural references. They didn't do that too. I don't think they did that at all.
Just with the term communist.
Yeah.
That I mean, people still use the word communist today, but back then, during the Cold War is when it was really used, and I think that's the only thing that just states the movie is the term communist.
Yeah.
That's it. And
yeah, but it's like, so and even though it was a very topical issue of the time,
It still is.
It still works. It still works as a movie today.
Nuclear holocaust can still happen.
I mean, the movie at the time just shows... Well, also, yeah, and also just shows how very stupid and silly the Cold War arms race, or the Cold War everything was.
And how a nuclear war, or nuclear arms is.
Yeah.
Because it's just no one wins.
And that message will, extends to test of time. Because nowadays we look and we think, oh, this is just so silly.
Here's an idea. Just because of how I thought about this right now, and just because of how brilliant Kubrick is, because he was so ahead of the curve. Once again, this movie only has one female, and she has just a quick few lines, one scene, and the thing is, and she's dressed she's dressed pretty just a bikini.
She's wearing a
bikini and high heels, inside sunbathing, and she's also in a Playboy shoot.
Yeah.
And so you can argue that's a bit sexist, now, and it's all men. So why it's all men? That
bunch of angry men.
That in itself dates it because it's all men. Some would say, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But I think what's funny about it, because I've hearing my mom talk and just because of how far ahead, maybe he obviously purposely put it men because that's. And the time that all men were,
only men were, yeah.
But when you look at it now, it's kind of funny because it's like a bunch of boys playing war and making dumb decisions almost. if you think about it.
Okay.
Because if you look at it,
so it's kind of a retroactive.
Because of how far ahead of the curve Kubrick is, I feel like he had that in the back of his head. Because when you watch this so many times, you look at it, these men in high power have a lot of boy moments, acting like boys of when especially Buck,
childish.
Especially Buck.
Oh God!
And then childish because the ambassador is obviously off at some party because he says
the president.
The
premier
is off at a party because the ambassador says he might be a man of the people, but he's still a man. So obviously you're not going to get him at his office. You're going to get him at maybe a strip club or bar.
Yeah.
So that's why it's funny and it has moments of. These are still these men of power, they're acting like a bunch of boys playing sticks in in the backyard, and that's why it's kind of funny. It has those moments because they're so committed and dedicated to this cause of craziness, and they want to win. They want to say, as a little side. I think that's how far ahead of the curve Kubrick was, and to help, and this is what can help to help with the argument of how timeless this movie is.
Okay, that's very good. I like that, Tom. Yeah, if you're, it's not just a movie for Kubrick completists. I mean, usually when we think of Kubrick, we think, 2001, man, Full Metal Jacket, Space Odyssey, Eyes Wide Shut,
Spartacus, Paths of Glory.
Well, maybe not Paths of Glory. But
you said for Kubrick.
That's more like complete. Well, okay, for anyone that thinks of Kubrick, you think of those movies, especially the ones he did later on.
When you think of Kubrick, I think you really think of 2001 because that movie alone is.
Except for Halloween, scale. Then you watch The Shining.
Yeah, but and for this one, it's a different genre because this director hit so many genres. This one is one of I know I haven't seen them all yet because I'm only 21. But I guarantee you, this is one of the top. This is in the top 10 of comedies ever made, because it's that perfect. It's that great. It's flaw. This is one of those few moments in cinema of flawless execution.
Yeah.
Of writing, acting, set design, cinematography, everything.
Honestly, the only flaw would probably be the moments where the ambassador had to.
Broke it
just because Peter Sellers was acting so goofy in his wheelchair.
It was awesome. That's it. That'd be it.
I almost wonder if they did a better take in which the actor who played the ambassador got himself under control.
Or everyone was, yeah.
If everyone was under control because they did it so many times, but Sellers wasn't as good because the energy is lost. I mean, we know from stage, sometimes you're in that mood where you don't have the energy and it's an off night.
You can't force it.
You can't force it, and then it feels off. So maybe you just used it earlier.
It probably was, or because in those long shots, or those shots showing the whole group behind him, because there's 20 dudes behind him.
Yeah.
How can you are you gonna if that main, because the focus is Peter Sellers, if that was such a good performance, are you gonna redo it because one guy in the background, one dude in the background went like this, like. quickly. You know what I mean? Like I know Kubrick is.
Kubrick
has a method to his madness. He's crazy.
Is like
awesome.
He's
the guy.
David Fincher is like today's Kubrick in that he does a lot of takes.
And here's a show too of how how detail oriented and anal you could say Kubrick was. In a different movie he did, Spartacus. He sat down in a chair. And the Spartacus is a cast of thousands movie. He had all 1,500 extras get in a line in front of him, and he personally okayed each of their costumes. And if one of them wasn't, he told him to go to the costume designer, and get back in line. That's what he did. So that's an example of this man, of how he thought, the method to his madness. But I think that's why I'm saying he kept he kept what he did, what he had, because you can't control. I mean, all 20 of them laughing, like, because it's so hilarious. It's such a comedical part of the movie where he's just the hands going everywhere, saluting Hitler, choking him. He's beating the crap out of his hand. He's biting his hand. It's so funny. It's like him on set, he was laughing so hard and he was tears. He's like, he just kept it because you know what? That's the best we're gonna get out of this.
It's the best one we're gonna get.
And it's too good to pass up the moments because Peter Sellers sold it. So,
and maybe because he laughed so hard, and then probably saw that mistake when he looked at the dailies. It's like, but this is still our best take. Maybe he was
laughing so hard because
probably why he didn't do too many comedies ever again.
Well, yeah, when you have such great actors too playing it like this, and that's why this is why we chose this movie for one of our throwbacks, because it is a classic. It is already. Yeah. And it will forever always stand the test of time because one, it's a hilarious comedy, but two, because of the topic it deals with, because it is unfortunately a timeless topic, because since what ended World War II with the 2 nuclear bombs, we're going to always have nuclear armament until everyone disarms or detonates. Yeah. So that it's an unfortunate timeless topic, but that's what makes this movie timeless. Nuclear Holocaust. Yeah. Nuclear Armageddon, nuclear war, nuclear arms, everything. Yeah. And that's why this movie works today in 2016, just watching it for fun. Just watching it randomly, just popping in the DVD. That's why. This is why if you haven't seen it,
it's a really great movie.
Yeah, watch it. So, any other final thoughts, Travis, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, don't watch it because it's a Kubrick movie. Watch it because it's a really good comedy.
Yeah, and, if you like to laugh, watch that.
If you're a history teacher and you happen to be listening to this for some reason, definitely show it to your kids, your students, when you get to the Cold War. That's what my 11th grade history teacher, Mr.
And it's PG.
PG, so there's no cursing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, no.
There's no cursing.
It's PG, so
they come close to saying bullshit, but he says bull.
Yeah, that's what I think. They kept it so PG.
It was 1964, so they had to.
And PG back then's like PG-13R almost. You could get away with it. I remember one movie had a PG rating, and they dropped the F-bomb, or there was it was blood and everything.
Yeah.
Or so that's why it's a PG movie. You can definitely show it to any classroom of students, and that's why for a history, for any history course, and that comes across the time period of the Cold War, this is a great opportunity because one, it gives a lighthearted side of funniness, but also two, how crazy it was and serious it was too, and how if this happens, this is a great depiction of back then what would happen, probably now how we would be like if this happened.
I'm just thinking about this. It's like, what would a topic be for the next version of Dr. Strangelove? And I was like, oh God, what if someone tried to make a comedy satirizing Islamic terrorism? That I was like, could that be done?
No, it wouldn't be touched on. It's because that doesn't.
Or is 9/11 too harsh?
No, I would argue that no, because it's not a political thing. That's like a religious thing. It's different.
Okay, well it would be about terrorism, but of course, Islamic terrorism would be the focus because that's what anyone thinks when they think of terrorism nowadays.
I don't think anyone's going to touch on this.
It's like the only global crisis I can really think of right now.
No.
Okay.
This is why this movie works, I think. Because it was more of, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
No, that's what I'm saying. Nuclear war didn't happen.
That's a good
real
point.
Life. We've had unfortunate things happen.
We teased it, but this never happened.
Yeah, that's why. We came close to it, but it never happened. Unfortunately, That's why that wouldn't work, and that's why this movie, Dr. Strangelove, works. What Travis was thinking about, if it could work. We always think of movies that could work. Can it work? Can it be done? Should it be done? Do we want it to be done? Overall, probably you can make a movie about anything if you think about it.
So you just
it just wouldn't, because the Cold War, the nuclear war never happened. It was just teased and threatened.
Okay.
Other stuff, unfortunately, has happened involving terrorism. That's why.
So in other words, please, for the love of God, do not ever remake this movie.
No, you can't. This is not a remake. This is just like Gone with the Wind in 2001: Space Odyssey. It's perfect, the first round. So this wraps it up for our throwback segment on combo number 2. Once again, I am Tom Flores.
I'm Travis. Follow me on Twitter, musicalnoteXDR. Also the name of my YouTube channel. Subscribe. Check it out.
Really, guys, check it out. It's really great. Thanks again for being with us, Travis. And thank you once again for joining us here on combo number 2. Catch you on the next time.
Bye.
Bye.